CFL Report. All the highlights of Week 1 in Canadian football. In Peter Watt's CFL Notebook, the dispersal draft. And Gil the Thrill Finnerty, already a big hit in Toronto. TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the CFL Report. After the demise of the Alouettes, the news has to be better this week. We begin with a quick look at the division standings. And there is an encouraging sign in the East, with Ottawa on top after Week 1. And a new look, too, with Winnipeg now officially in the CFL East, predictably with a share of top spot. The surprise is Hamilton in the basement along with the Argonauts. In the West, little surprise. Edmonton and BC share top spot after convincing weekend victories. Calgary 1-1, Saskatchewan winless in 2. A closer look at the week just passed and a preview of what's ahead with Leif Pettersson a little bit later. As well, reports from Calgary and Vancouver to preview TSN's Game of the Week Wednesday between the Lions and the Stampeders. Right now, Peter Watt's CFL Notebook. And on page 1 this week, the Montreal Draft.
Thank you, John. Well, while the Montreal Alouettes franchise is officially dead now, the professional football careers of 23 players are still very much alive. Those players selected by one of the other 8 CFL teams in the dispersal draft last Friday. And at least a couple of these players are impact players, the kind who can help their new teams right away.
Wide receiver James Hood is expected to be a key impact player with his new team, the Ottawa Rough Riders. Hood played for head coach Fred Glick when both were with Winnipeg a couple of seasons back. Riders will do some lineup juggling to get Hood onto the roster, but he is expected to play on Friday night in Winnipeg. He'll be a big challenge to the Bombers' secondary, and a James Hood-Roy Bennett matchup would be a treat to watch. Kicker Dave Ridgway says he's glad to be back home in Regina, and he was the first of the old Alouettes to debut with his new team. Unfortunately, Ridgway and the rest of the Riders had a tough outing last Sunday in Vancouver, but Ridgway is expected to give Saskatchewan the consistent place-kicking the team has been seeking. Defensive lineman Brett Williams has yet to see action with the BC Lions, and he won't play Wednesday against Calgary. But Williams is well thought of by head coach Don Matthews, who told me that Williams and Benny Jones will battle for a defensive tackle job during the week break the Lions get after the Calgary game. Winnipeg has been looking for a replacement for the retired Joe Poplawski. Randy Faby has the spot at the moment, but Nick Araki is experienced, big, and versatile. And most importantly, he appears to have made a full recovery from the neck injury he suffered last year. Araki gives added depth to an already superb Bomber receiving corps. And Willard Reeves won't mind following Araki on a sweep play either. The Argos may add a second Canadian linebacker to their roster for Saturday's game in Regina. Matt Finley will be their choice. They've liked him since his college days at Eastern Michigan, and they think that if Finley can play, they can use an American at some other position. While Hamilton is moaning about not getting defensive lineman Glenn Kulka in the draft, the Ticats have strengthened themselves considerably on the offensive line with the acquisition of Sean McEwen and Lloyd Fairbanks. And they like wide receiver Jacques Chepdelain, although he'll have to beat out Wayne Lee, who's played well so far in '87. Linebacker William Mitchell and quarterback Steve Benjamin have joined the Edmonton Eskimos, and Benjamin is the key man. Despite last Saturday's showing against the Stampeders, the Eskimos are looking for help in their defensive secondary. Benjamin is expected to provide just that.
These impact players should be able to help their new teams right away, and perhaps one of the lesser lights will step into a starting role and become a star in the CFL this season as well. And we must not forget the 22 players who weren't selected, who are now free agents, but who may at some point in the season be picked up and given another chance to play pro football. Perhaps they too will see their day in the sun sometime this season. I'm Peter Watts, that's CFL Notebook.
Familiar faces in new places, we wish them well. Hopefully there will be some benefits from the disaster in Montreal. Just ahead, game highlights from Week 1 in Canadian football. Welcome back to the the CFL Report on TSN. Just ahead, the TSN Canadian Star of the Week. First, though, a look back to highlights, beginning with a surprise Friday night as the renewed Rough Riders knocked off the Grey Cup champs. Ottawa's rookie head coach Fred Glick unveiled his new-look Rough Riders against Al Bruno and his unchanged Grey Cup champion Tiger Cats. It was the Cats leading 3-0 early. Then the Rough Riders got on track. Todd Dillon hitting newcomer Carl Williams. And Williams turns this play into a super touchdown. 47-yard touchdown, the results. The Ottawa Rough Riders out in front of the Ticats 7-3. On to the second quarter. Ticat quarterback Mike Kerrigan looking for Wayne Lee, but rookie Will Lewis steps in front of this one, 21 yards. He's into the end zone. The Rough Riders led 26-3 at the half. Ken Hobart replaced Kerrigan in the second half and tossed a pair of touchdown passes to Steve Stapler. This one cut the Ottawa lead to 36-30 late in the game. Hamilton with a chance to pull this one out, but Ken Zachary fumbled deep in the Ottawa zone. Ottawa holds on to give head coach Fred Glick his first CFL coaching victory and top spot in the Eastern Division. One more chapter in the Battle of Alberta, the Stampeders and the Eskimos at Commonwealth Stadium. Unfortunately for Calgary, this contest was out of hand quickly. Damon Allen at quarterback for Tom Richards. Richards a great job to stay in bounds. 27-16 Eskimos at the intermission. Best part of the second half was watching this guy, Edmonton punt return specialist Henry the Gizmo Williams. Early in the third, Williams takes this punt 91 yards. Easily to the end zone for a touchdown. Way to go, Henry. 37-16 Eskimos. And more of the same still in the third quarter. Williams a nifty 72-yard gallop for the Major this time. Williams a great night, and so did the Eskimos. They cruised to a surprisingly easy 54-16 victory over Calgary. And the final stop, BC Place. First game of the year for head coach Don Matthews and the Lions. Second outing for John Gregory and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Just one touchdown in the first half. Roy DeWalt to Jim Sandusky. Sandusky finished the game with 5 receptions, 139 yards, and this touchdown. The Lions led 10-1 at the intermission. Third quarter, Saskatchewan's Jeff Bentram, an easy interception for cornerback Mel Bird. Bird takes the special delivery all the way to the end zone. 30-1 BC after 3. And Ned Armour did his best to make the fans forget about Mervyn Fernandez. 2 touchdown passes, this one a 29-yarder from Greg Vavra. Nelson Martin puts the icing on the cake with a 28-yard interception return. Midway through the fourth, the Lions go on to a humiliating 44-1 whitewash, making John Gregory wish he'd stayed in bed. A disappointing loss for Saskatchewan. The Rough Riders drop to 0-2, and Saturday they host the Argonauts at Taylor Field. Now, the CFL Stars who shone in Week 1. Veteran quarterback Tom Clements, our choice from the Winnipeg-Toronto game. Typical Clements in this one. He completed 21 of 31 passes for 315 yards and a pair of touchdowns. The Bombers topped the Argonauts by 8. Ottawa kicker Dean Dorsey, a big contributor in the Riders' upset win over Hamilton. The U of T grad continues to be one of the league's most reliable placement kickers. Dorsey accounted for 18 points on 5 field goals in Ottawa's upset victory. Every member of the Eskimos looked good in Saturday's trouncing of the Calgary Stampeders at Commonwealth, but the heroics of punt returner Henry Williams deserve special attention and one more look. Williams totaled 221 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Eskimos easily sidelined the Stampeders. And finally, from Sunday's game in BC, a great day for the Lions after a slow start, but in particular for defensive back Mel Bird. The 5-year veteran picked off 3 Saskatchewan passes and returned 1 for a touchdown as the Lions mauled the Rough Riders 44-1. Quite a night for Edmonton's Henry Williams, 2 punt return touchdowns and a CFL record for single game return yardage. Williams 221 yards, and that beats the old mark of 208 set by Ottawa's Moody Jackson in 1976. Still ahead, TSN's Canadian Star of the Week.
What a blow this would take off Danny Barrett if he can establish some kind of a running game.
A different style of runner, Lee, for Tommy Zorman. Welcome back to the CFL Report. In this segment, Toronto's Gil the Thrill Finnerty. But first, TSN's Canadian Player of the Week. Honorable mention to Ottawa kicker Dean Dorsey for 5 field goals against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. This week's runner-up is Lions defensive back Nelson Martin. The Seneca College grad picked off 2 passes and returned 1 for a touchdown in BC's win over Saskatchewan. But TSN's Canadian Player of the Week award goes to Edmonton Eskimo running back Chris Skinner. The 3-year veteran from Bishop's University turned in a solid performance against Calgary. Skinner ran for 91 yards on 8 carries and caught 5 passes for another 41. Chris Skinner of the Eskimos, TSN's Canadian Player of the Week. There were a few snickers when General Manager Leo Cahill found a running back in the Italian-American Football League. But no one is laughing now. Gil Finnerty from Holy Cross and the Bolzano Jets is fitting in very nicely in Toronto.
This was Toronto's first look at the boy from Bolzano making good in the CFL. Gil Finnerty in the Argos season opener against Winnipeg made a lasting first impression. He carried 17 times for 73 yards, caught 6 passes for another 58 yards, including this touchdown. Not bad for a guy who was playing in relative obscurity last season in the Italian-American Football League. He may have said arrivederci to Italy, but some of the culture Finnerty learned during his 3-month stay over there playing for the Bolzano Jets made the trip with him to the Canadian Football League and to Toronto.
2 tortellini con pana. Buono? Sì, sì, e un fettuccine al freddo, come le pasta, come le pasta. Sì, pasta bene o male? Sì, sì, buona.
Finnerty may be forgetting some of the language, but he hasn't forgotten the lifestyle.
What we did was we lived like Italians. You know, we weren't tourists. We were in a city. I might have known 5 people that spoke English. So, you know, it was hard at first for the first month or so, but you know, you just soak up their culture. I liked it better than going over there and being a tourist because you don't see what they want you to see. You see the real Italy.
Do you remember the first thing you learned in Italiano?
Scusa me, because I always ran into people. But the first time you hear Italian, it's like one word. It's you know. So you spend a month just. It's very frustrating.
You said you got into the culture. Did you end up enjoying fine wines, fine food, and fine cars?
Well, the best thing about it was the lifestyle. You know, they were very, you might want to call it laid-back people. They enjoyed life. They worked to live instead of, you know, they weren't as career-oriented, but they were life-oriented. And, you know, the best part of the day was from 12 to 3 when, you know, everything stops, everyone takes off work, they go home and eat, go to the cafe or whatever. But the lifestyle just overall was very appealing. You know, you're not going to find many millionaires there, but people were happy.
Well, does Gil Finnerty work to live, or is he career-oriented?
I'm too young to figure that out, to decide right now. You know, I guess you have to be right now in this game. You have to, you know, be very dedicated to what you do. So, in that way, I am. But you know, I guess you can call football players. They're putting off that inevitable having to work for, you know, for as long as they can play.
What about football Canadian style?
The game seems to be more, you use your talents. You know, you go out there and you play football. It's a lot of the coaches say, especially to the receivers, go out and play like it's in touch. Find the open area. You don't have to do an exact pattern, but you know, go where the defense doesn't go in ways like that. And you know, the bigger field makes it more wide open. You know, for a person with my abilities, you know, I'm no Marcus Allen or whatever, but it seems to suit me fine, and I'm having a great time in it.
17 carries per game, Gil. Is this what we're going to continue to see?
You know, that's not my decision, but I hope I've done a little bit last game to influence the coach to give it to us more. So it'd be nice.
Well, in France, salut. In Italy?
Salud, salud.
Give us a cheer for the upcoming season.
Salud, per la Grey Cup.
Leave it to Leo to find a back in Bolzano. No question, though, Gil Finnerty made a major contribution in his first game for the Argos Thursday on TSN's Game of the Week. This week, we'll move to the Western Division for the Lions and the Stampeders Wednesday. And for a preview of that one, we have two reports. First with the Lions, here's David Pratt.
Thanks, John. What a difference a year can make. This time last year, the Lions were the defending Grey Cup champions. They had everything going their way. The Stampeders, on the other hand, were a team struggling to survive both on and off the field. In the last year, the Lions have been forced to rebuild their offensive line. The biggest hole to fill was left with the retirement of Al Wilson. And then there's Mervin Fernandez, who has cashed in with the LA Raiders.
We're missing a lot of talent there because all those guys were talented ball players, and we're going to miss them dearly, but we got to get out and still play competitive football and get the job done. I think we will. It may take a while for us to get together as a cohesive unit and do some of the good things that we've been doing in the past, but I think it's going to get there.
But that's not to say DeWalt and the Lions do not have some teeth left in their offense. Anthony Parker appears to be the quality running back this team has been looking for, and Ned Armour gives the Lions a serious deep threat. The real question mark is the defense. James Parker could miss the entire season with a knee injury. Also missing will be Glenn Jackson. As a result, the defensive backs have felt the heat.
Well, in a sense, that's true, because when you get a spectacular rush from the D lineman, then it makes our job much easier. You know, you say, oh, I got a pick, but it's contributed to the lineman. So now it's maybe you have to depend on your skills a bit more, and I think we'll rise to the occasion.
There is also some dissension on the ball club involving head coach Don Matthews. He and Darnell Clash are not getting along these days, and that has left Clash watching from the sidelines. Add to all of that, the Stampeders have been able to steal a number of the Lions' top assistant coaches, including one that is now the head coach in Calgary.
They have some people who now think they can win every time they go out, as opposed to hoping they can win. And I think that that's the big major change that they've done. Bob Vespasiani, of course, has done a remarkable job with that young football team as quickly as he has. Certainly he's had some help with some of the BC Lion assistants, and we're always willing to help if we can. But Bob's done a good job. They're a good football team. Certainly Johnson now is back in his second year as a starter, is going to be a more productive quarterback than he was in the past, and I think they're a very good football team.
For the last few years, the Lions have talked about how much depth they have in this ball club. Against Calgary, they'll get the opportunity to back up that talk. For the CFL Report, I'm David Pratt in Vancouver. And now with a look at the Stampeders, here's Teresa Hergert in Calgary.
Thanks, David. Well, reorganization, change, and strategy have been the key words for Calgary since Saturday's devastating loss in Edmonton. Now, the Stamps could blame the new game schedule and say they just weren't ready, but they know that attitude doesn't put points on the scoreboard, especially against a team like the BC Lions, who will be here in Calgary on Wednesday.
I think the key to beat BC is that our receivers and running backs beat their defensive backs because they play an extraordinary amount of man coverage, and the offensive line beats their defensive line with enough time that we can let the receivers do their thing.
The Eskimos' Saturday night romp through, over, and around Calgary's defense has made the team realize they've got a problem. With only 2 days to prepare, they've had to work fast.
Well, what we've done is we've hopefully simplified a few things for them, and you know, maybe now they're going to get after it a little bit more. And you know, I think as a man and as a professional, when you're embarrassed, you know, you want to come back and redeem yourself. I know as a coach we were embarrassed, and I think as the players they were embarrassed, and you know, we're working you know, hard to you know, to get the players built up and to make the system work.
Well, I tell you, the attitude we're going in with is, you know, somebody got to pay for, you know, what we went through Saturday, and that's really the attitude we're taking, and we, you know, just really look forward to going out there working with each other again and proving each other that we're that same football team we were last year.
A few minor injuries and the need for a new approach has necessitated several line changes. We can expect to see veteran Terry Irvin back playing for Calgary. Signed as a free agent last Thursday, Irvin will replace the injured David McCrary as cornerback.
Well, you know, I feel that I bring a lot of experience to their secondary, and you know, I still play the game very aggressive, and that's something they're looking for as well too. I'm very physical, and you know, I feel, you know, I can help with the leadership ability in the secondary. When things break down, maybe, you know, we can get it back on cue very, very fast. And you know, I feel that I just, you know, bring a lot of experience, and I've played with the guys that are here before, with Larry Hogue and Ron Hopkins, also Richie Hall, so we're all familiar with each other as well.
A change in quarterbacks will complete the starting lineup for Wednesday's tangle with the Lions. Rick Johnson will be back and hoping to prove his shoulder is as healthy as ever.
I can't have a rough start. That's all there is to it. I got to have a good start and get off on the right foot. Otherwise, I'll be yanked, I would imagine, you know, because of the way the Worm has played. He's played pretty good football. So yeah, I'll get off to a good start and see what happens from there.
With one humbling loss under their belts, Calgary's determined to pull up their socks and get on with the season. Wednesday's home opener against BC would be the place to start. Teresa Hergert for CFL Report in Calgary. John?
Okay, Teresa, thank you for that. Joining me now, Leif Pettersson for a closer assessment of the TSN Game of the Week, Stamps and the Lions. This one has some pretty good possibilities.
Well, I think it does, John. There's some pretty good matchups this week, but I think BC at Calgary is one of the best. Calgary, their first home game of the season at McMahon Stadium, 1-1. Of course, they want to get above the 500 mark, but you know, BC's only had 3 days rest in preparation to get ready for this, and had it been a tougher game last Sunday with Saskatchewan, it could have been a problem, but they had such an easy time that I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Rick Johnson, will he be a quarterback for the Stampeders?
Well, I certainly hope so. He was on the sidelines last Saturday night in Edmonton, and hopefully he'll get to start on Wednesday because he's an exciting performer, and when he's playing, they have a chance to beat anybody.
How does a devastating loss for the Stampeders and an overwhelming victory for the BC Lions affect this one?
Well, I think it really puts the pressure squarely on the Stampeders' shoulders because they want to get above 500. It's their home opener, and I mean, they look terrible in Edmonton, so they'd like to get it back this week.
All right, we'll be back, and Leaf will pick the winners for Week 2 in Canadian football right after this. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Time to put Leif Pettersson on the spot. Pick a few winners for Week 2 in Canadian football. BC at Calgary is our game on Wednesday night. Now the Lions, big winners over the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the weekend.
Only on the scoreboard, John. You know what? They did not play that well. In the first half, had it been anybody else but the lousy Roughriders, you know, they could have been in trouble. 10-1 at the half, they could have been had by anybody else.
Still, you like the Lions over the Calgary Stampeders Wednesday night?
Well, I do, because Calgary played so brutal on Saturday night in Edmonton. You have to give the nod to BC.
All right, let's look at how it matches up. Our game, BC Lions, Calgary Stampeders. Only one tick on the Stampeders side. That is for passing, and I suppose that is for Rick Johnson at quarterback.
If he starts at quarterback, there's nobody better in the league. If he doesn't start, then it's ticks all the way down the left side for BC.
All right, let's go to the next matchup. Friday night, Winnipeg Blue Bombers host the Ottawa Roughriders. This one for first place in the Eastern Division of the Canadian Football League.
Hey, Ottawa's for real. You know, they played a super game against Hamilton last Friday night, and they won. The only problem is they have to go and play in Winnipeg, and that's not fun for anybody because Winnipeg was my pick as the best team in the CFL when we started, and nothing's changed.
Fred Glick goes back home with the Ottawa Roughriders, and can he beat the Bombers?
Not a chance. They get one check mark, does Ottawa, and that's for special teams because I'm a big fan of Dean Dorsey, and he's having a super year already and will continue to do so, but Winnipeg, easy.
All right, the Saturday matchup, let's talk about this one a little bit. A key game for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, winless in 2 starts. The Argonauts looking for their first victory as well. Who wins this one?
Well, I like Toronto. It's tough, my old Roughriders. They're 0-2. They'd like to get the fans off their back, but I don't think it'll happen.
All right, how do you stack this one up? First of all, rushing.
Well, the rushing goes to Toronto. They got that big offensive line. Gil the Thrill Fennerty, he's for real, and he'll have a good day.
Now, quarterbacking may be an interesting story on both sides.
Well, I think it is, but Saskatchewan looks so bad in BC. Tom Burgess and Jeff Bentram, they were brutal. They just would like close their eyes and throw the football. So I give the check mark to Toronto. John Kangemi looked good in the second half against Winnipeg. He'll probably get the start, and he's not too bad.
All right, let's look at the rest of the Argonaut-Saskatchewan matchup here. Argos all the way down the left side, secondary to Saskatchewan. But I guess you're saying that the Argo secondary isn't that strong either.
No, they both get a check mark because they're so bad I couldn't flip a coin, you know.
All right, the Grey Cup rematch, Edmonton in Hamilton against the Tiger Cats on Sunday, final game of Week 2.
This is a great game. I think Edmonton has a lot more to prove than maybe Hamilton as a defending champs because Hamilton really dominated them last November.
All right, how do you look at it?
Well, I give the rushing to Hamilton. They've got Zachary, that big back, and he's a tough one. Passing, Matt Dunnigan, anytime he's on the field, he's one of the most exciting guys around, and I give it to him.
Who wins the football game, though, when you got all these checks beside the Tiger Cats?
Well, there's a lot of checks for Hamilton, but, you know, and this is for you, Wellesley, because I know you're such a big Edmonton fan. I'm going to call them an upset because they always play well in Hamilton.
All right, Leif, thank you very much. We'll check out your record next week at this same time. That wraps up this edition of the CFL Report. Be with us tomorrow afternoon as we celebrate Canada Day with the Lions and the Stampeders live from McMahon Stadium in Calgary, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 o'clock Eastern for the CFL Game of the Week on TSN, the Lions and the Stampeders. And join us next week at our regular time for the CFL Report on TSN.
TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery.